Thank you for having me here today, and it is a great honor to be part of this process and to be part of this presentation to share a little bit about our journey of going the other way. As was mentioned by Maria, a digital only or previously digital only publication going into the world of print. Madder than a bag of snakes, I think, is the article that described this move. And today I'm going to share a little bit about how we got to that decision, and hopefully to show to you and the rest of the world that we weren't exactly as mad as everyone made us out to be. So a little bit about myself. I'm a reformed accountant. This is my first gig in media. 11 years ago, I helped co-found the Daily Maverick. I'm responsible for all the non-editorial functions of the business. So I've had my hands dirty in sales, project management, technology, and all sorts of product enterprises and events and escapades. I helped design our membership program that launched in 2018, and I've also been one of the primary architects of this product launch into newsprint under the banner of Daily Maverick 168. I've also had a fear of public speaking since the 1990s, so if I'm not that inspirational talk today that you were hoping for, I apologize in advance. A little bit about Daily Maverick. We were founded in October 2009 in Johannesburg, so we're celebrating our 11th birthday in a couple of days' time. We're a digital-only startup that focused on long-form journalism in a time when everyone was thinking about how to put up a web page for the cheapest, nastiest way possible. We started in a small boardroom with a very loud air conditioning unit, 5 permanent editorial staff, and a part-time CEO. That was me. And amongst the many accolades we've managed to accumulate along the way, we were announced Best Publisher in Africa, the 2019 WAN-IFRA Awards. We now had a peak of 4.5 million unique visitors in April 2020, as the COVID numbers pushed quality news and trusted news publishers to all-time highs. We now sit at about 3.8 million, so we've managed to retain many of those visitors who came to us for the first time. We send out about 14 million newsletters a month to 200,000 subscribers across 13 newsletters, and we have a membership base of 15,000 active members since our launch in 2018. A little bit about the revenue strategy of Daily Maverick, just to give you a bit of context and understanding how we're funded and how we derive revenue. So for the football fans amongst you, you might be familiar with attacking formations or team formations as 4-4-2. So we came up with something and we called it the 3-2-6 revenue strategy formation. And so what that means is that there are 3 pillars of revenue that we look to generate. So philanthropy, commercial, and reader revenue. And we aim to have a vision of a third from each of these pillars. And then within each of those pillars, we look to have 2 significant revenue streams that in total will give us 6 significant individual revenue streams. So you can see under the philanthropic vertical, from individuals and foundations, under commercial, advertising and events is what we started with, and we've added some new ones in documentaries and books. And in the reader revenue space, we have our membership program and once-off contributions, and that is our 3-6 revenue formation that we use to sustain ourselves. Key to all of this, and key to the launch of the newspaper, is our membership program, which we called Maverick Insider, which was launched in August 2018. The primary goal of the membership program is that we end up building this healthy and really engaged community of loyal readers and audiences. The financial success of this is a byproduct, and I stress this because if we had put the financial success and profitability as the main goal of the membership plan, I think we would have made some significantly different decisions along the way. And that's why we always reiterate to ourselves and to our community and to our readers and to the public at large that our primary goal is to build a healthy and engaged community. We also knew that once we hit 10,000 active members, that opportunities would present themselves that we didn't really know or envisage at when we started. So for example, we launched a book publishing division. Once we got to that number, we're about to launch our e-commerce store, and the newspaper was also part of that thinking, knowing that with that number of loyal and engaged readers who participate and who know things about us behind the scenes, that we could then launch these new activities and ventures off the back of that support. How we decide which ventures to go into and which products. So the Ikigai Ikigai thinking, or Ikigai concept, is a Japanese one, which helps people identify or helps people figure out what is their purpose in life. And so we like to use this as a way for us to guide some of our new product decisions and how we do that. So the Ikigai concept creates a Venn diagram of things that I love, things that I'm good at, things that the world needs, and things that I can be paid for. And that at an individual level is what it looks like, what the Ikigai concept looks like. And we try to apply that in our product decisions. You know, what do we love to do? What are we good at? And what does the world need? And what can we do that can be monetized? And if it fits in the middle of that, then, you know, it gets a green light at a conceptual or principled level to go forward. In a world of resource constraints and in a world of uncertainty, this is a great starting point to assess a lot of our new product and new ventures. So why a print edition? I think we need to explain a little bit of the thinking behind that. So, you know, these numbers are the ABC audited Bureau of Circulation numbers in South Africa for paid newspapers, some of the biggest titles. You'll see trends here that probably are quite similar to those in your country. So from 5 years ago, Q1 numbers dropping 45%, 68%, 34%, with an average sort of per annum decline of 8 or 9% across the board. So nothing new there. Those are the numbers that we've been seeing in some of our biggest and oldest titles in this country in the weekly English-speaking market. To graph those out for you and to show you what is probably a quite common sight when looking at newspaper circulation numbers, starting up at the left and going down a little bit steeper for some as opposed to the others, but all kind of moving down and to the right. I think the paradox of news publishing is encompassed in this graph here, which is for the graph totals of 40 audited Bureau circulation titles. The green line is their digital audience of those 40 titles over those 5 years, and the red line is their print circulation numbers. So we can see the print circulation going down, the digital numbers going up, but the revenue not being reflected in that, and then revenue decreasing, and that in that lies and encapsulates the paradox of news publishing in today's age. So we are part of a consumer research panel that is the biggest in South Africa, that goes out to about 30,000 panelists every year. People respond to the survey. They do about 250 questions. It's quite a lengthy survey. It's quite detailed. Within there is a lot of insight. And one of the slides that stood out for us was a question with regards to people's newspaper habits compared to a year ago. And what we saw was quite interesting. So our line is the red charts, red bar charts are ours, and the gray ones are the biggest online news publisher in South Africa, news24.com. And the numbers are quite similar, but also quite striking in that 82% of our readers and 82% of the biggest news sites in the country still regularly read newspapers. Now, if we then reconcile that against the common understanding and perception of what's happening and the ABC numbers that I showed you previously, there's a mismatch somewhere. So print is dead, print is dying. Is that true? We're seeing the paid numbers going down, but we're seeing people are still somehow engaging with the medium, and which led us to ask, is the problem with the medium itself, or is the problem with what's on those papers? So when we did our pilot, which was our minimum viable product, and we put out an edition, a full edition, and we then followed up with a survey, we asked people, why do you think newspaper readership has declined in South Africa, and what is the biggest reason in your opinion? And the decline in the quality and trust of newspapers came out as the overwhelming response to why people had pulled back from these paid titles. And so all of this information was going into our sort of melting pot of reasons why we thought that we could put something out that could work as well. Here is an extract from some of our analytics. And so we look at the number of people who visited our site more than 15 times in a month. And we can see there we had a user base of about 55,000 unique visitors who crossed that threshold. And we could look at the pages per user, which was 50 in that month. Now, for us, when we look at this, and we're a publication that puts out quite a lot of feature-length content for our size and for our newsroom size as well. And 50 articles is about our average on a daily basis. And so what we're seeing is we're putting out all this great, rich content, great feature-length stuff, analysis, investigations, opinions. But even our most loyal fans are struggling to get through all of this, which was another thing that went into our mix and our formula of what we wanted a weekly print publication to do for our readers. So in looking at all of this, we looked at the macro trends, we looked at the overwhelming amount of information and news and misinformation and disinformation that is coming out on digital platforms. We're seeing the anxiety that is being caused by social media and some of the other mental health issues that are coming up as part of this digital deluge that's happening. We also tapped into our reader experiences. Even as ourselves putting out that amount of content, people weren't able to get through all of that. And so we were starting to, in our minds, create a job for this newspaper, which went beyond just sort of printing the latest news. It was about creating a weekly publication that gave people the opportunity to break free from their digital devices, which would give them the biggest news that happened during the week, the context of what that meant for them, and some new investigations and analysis pieces that had yet to be published. So for us, it was all about addressing the needs of our readers. What was the job of this weekly newspaper to do in the light of all this digital information that is out there? As well as looking at some of the ABC numbers of our paid for titles in South Africa, as well as the free titles. And what we noticed with the free titles, in the same time as the paid for titles were losing 10% a year, the free titles were holding constant throughout that time. We also had interviews with some of the biggest media buyers in the country, pitching this idea, gauging their feedback, and every single one of those conversations followed the exact same arc, which was, you guys are crazy, then listen to the idea, and you guys are crazy enough that this might just work, was the feedback that we got. So we also wanted to design this print product with digital design thinking and in mind. We didn't want to go the route that we had done before in some other projects, and we really wanted to use data and digital processes to inform and to guide our product design and launch. And so, product is a relatively new term in the news business. As a definition, this is one of the best ones that I've come across. Stacey Marie Ishmael is the Chief Product Officer at the Texas Tribune. And she gave it a broad definition, which is a framework for identifying, defining, and approaching business critical opportunities. And I really love that, because I found that over the last couple of years, the things that have given us the opportunity to be more successful in our endeavors is starting with a vision, and then B, having a framework against which we can progress and deal with the uncertainties and the curveballs that inevitably come up. So vision and framework are two key elements in what we try and do. To sort of put that all together into some kind of visual context, product sits in the middle of the user experience, the journalism that we create, data and technology that's used to serve that or distribute or create it, and obviously the business part of that, and that it touches on all of those aspects. And when we look at launching new products, we need to be thinking about each of these four bubbles in terms of how we launch, how they affect, and how they inform our decisions around launching this. Looking at the reader needs and what this newspaper needed to do, it wasn't just about breaking news. We know that breaking news is, will never be able to compete with the internet. And so in a weekly newspaper printed context, we wanted our publication to touch on each of these. We wanted to inspire, we wanted to amuse, we wanted to educate, create perspective and context, update on previously published stories, and then also keep people up to trend. And so each week we sort of try and make sure that each one of these needs are being addressed in our publication. Going through the various different stages really starts with identifying the need or the problem that we are trying to address, or the problem we're trying to solve. We interrogate the opportunity against the culture of the organization, the values that we have, the goals, and our resources, obviously. Is this possible to put out into the world in a resource-constrained company, in a resource-constrained industry that is struggling and where funding is difficult to obtain? We follow that up with as much research as we can do, surveys of potential readers, market analysis, looking at break-even costs and marginal costs, and putting together a business case for the product, and then designing a minimum viable product, putting something out into the world, putting a complete edition together, handing it out to people, surveying their reactions, recording those reactions, and then iterating based on the feedback that we got. We changed the layout and the design and the content mix, and then launching it out into the world, and then continuing to test and iterate as we launch into the world. So getting to launch was an interesting and I guess challenging effort, given that we were planning to launch at a time when the COVID pandemic really hit hard lockdown in South Africa. We went into hard lockdown at the end of March, and our plans were to launch the product into the market in July. So that pushed things out a little bit, but something that we did to kind of keep us on track is we used the OKR framework, objectives and key results. That's where the O and the K and the R come from. It's a methodology that is sort of made famous by John Doerr and his book, Measure What Matters. It's an incredible book about how to manage projects and manage organizations and people. And we use this with the start, with the end in mind thinking. And that's what I really like about this. It's always focusing on what is the vision, what is the thing that you're trying to achieve at the end, and then giving yourself the freedom and the framework with which to be able to be creative in solving those problems. So OKRs, very, very briefly, allows you to state a qualitative objective, and I'll dive into some of these as we go on, and then go, well, if you have this qualitative objective, what are the key results that allow you to know whether you are progressing against the achievement of that objective? And so you set yourself these SMART goals, stretch goals, and with a quarterly grading process. And it's a collaborative goal setting exercise that's done by the team. So our OKRs for Daily Maverick 168 for launch. And so this was to launch the best weekly newspaper in South Africa ever. And how did we know we were going to do that? So we wanted to get a distribution agreement with Pick n Pay, who were our retail partners, so a grocery store in South Africa. We knew that as an essential service, the grocery stores wouldn't be closed down, but also more importantly, we had entered into a deal, or we're hoping to enter into a deal whereby the newspaper would be provided free to Pick n Pay's Smart Shopper loyalty card holders, which is the biggest loyalty card program in the country. And what we would do is we would bring this quality newspaper into their stores. They would bring new audiences to us with marketing and the reach of the Smart Shopper program. So we wanted to get, this was one of our key results, was to get that done by March. We wanted to complete a pilot of 5 locations by May. We wanted to launch with 25,000 circulation by June. And we also wanted to have 3 launch sponsors. Now, when COVID hit and the pandemic hit, we pushed out these dates to give us the extra time to deal with the uncertainty of the lockdown regulations. But all that changed were the dates. Everything else with regards to the key results of how we were managing the launch of the product stayed in place. So we also did something, because we were launching with Pick n Pay, and this is going to be our exclusive launch partner. We encouraged our readers and Pick n Pay shoppers to vote for the locations of the stores that were going to be included in the launch plan, because we were planning on a limited launch of 25,000 copies around the country. We were only going to select certain stores, and with that, we asked people to help us choose those stores and vote for the ones that that were most convenient to them. What that allowed us to do was to capture the email addresses of our prospective readers. It created an opportunity for reader engagement and developing new audiences and new potential readers. and also helped us decide on which were the launch stores, and obviously have the data to back up any of those decisions, and to find stores that we might not have been able to do had we just gone with the traditional way of launching a newspaper title. So once we had launched, we adjusted our OKRs, and so we wanted to grow our 25,000 circulation. So this is the current set of OKRs that we're working on now that have been amended. We want to grow our circulation to 50,000 within 12 months. We want to have 0 returns. We want to have 2 major data and tech innovations involved in the newspaper process. We want a monthly break even after 6 months, and hopefully get some global PR and maybe win an award with the project. So how did we use this to inform our decision making? So the 25,000 circulation was, the significance of that number was based on some of those tables that I showed you earlier, that the competitor titles are putting out now, and with their audited numbers. The 25,000 would also give us the opportunity to be a national paper, and would also be a quality product that we would offer free to smart shoppers. And so how do we get to that number of 25,000 as quickly as possible, which was also one of the reasons, or one of the avenues that led us to working with the free to loyalty card holders efforts. 0 returns, we know that's almost impossible in the world of newspapers, but it is a stretch goal. It makes us focus on efficiency, and we're figuring out some interesting ways to deal with the leftover unsold copies. And then innovating with data and technology, using the voting process, recording the email addresses of those people, and getting data insights from our partner at Pick n Pay to help us create more detailed audience profiles about who is reading the newspaper. How can we use that information to speak to advertisers or create a better content offering as well? And then using the analytics that we get from the website to inform the content mix that is going into the newspaper each week. So break even after 6 months, that is our ambitious goal at the moment. Is it achievable or not? But it's something that we're striving towards. For us, when we looked at this as a business case, the numbers that made sense to us were that as a newsroom with quite a big bunch of probably the most experienced editors and journalists in the country that we now have, the marginal cost for us to create a printed edition wasn't that big compared to other organizations have in order to run their print departments. It also meant that we would need to fight for a certain percentage of market share, and that we would need to recruit new skills in publishing, a new publisher and sales team to work on this project, as well as looking for the international PR and awards. Well, we've already had quite a lot of that in WAN-IFRA. Some of the articles that have gone out, and we've also managed to get quite a bit around the world. It's made it's made quite a few headlines. But all this is done using the OKR methodology, starting with the end in mind, having sort of these barriers or these guidelines of key results to help us get there, has helped us build a roadmap that we could then go back and put quite concrete timelines and manage our project a lot more efficiently and a lot more accurately. And so, we missed our June launch date by, I think, 3.5 months. But given that we were dealing with a global pandemic at the time, we were very happy with that result. So now that the product is out and into the world, what does it look like? So here are a couple of photos from the newspapers on the stands. Every week we try and go with a bright and bold cover to help stand out. We've also got a section for Maverick Kids in part of our content mix. So for the children of the people who are picking up the copy, and some of the results so far from the launch. 1 month after launch, we got into 125 stores, and we were welcomed by the logistics and people challenges that come with putting out a newspaper into the world that is digital only publishers. we didn't have to experience before. But with that, we became the biggest selling newspaper in the Pick and Pay chain on the first day. Ad sales have been good and bad. Our launch edition got us to the weekly break-even point on the first one, and then the second edition wasn't so great. But as I said, we're giving ourselves that 6 months to get to break even. And I think given the uncertainty, the state of the market, the ad budgets that have been frozen, the cycles that you need to wait to get into, we've been pleasantly, I say surprised, but I think we're okay with the revenue potential that we've experienced so far. We've also conducted some surveys, and interestingly, 70% of survey respondents said that they changed their choice of store because of the newspaper. And what that means is we're waiting for the data to see what the buying patterns are like of the people who've collected these editions. And once we go through that, that'll make for an interesting discussion with our partners in terms of how much value this brings to them as an organization. We've achieved a 20,000 circulation number, which was just a little bit off our 25,000 circulation ambitions and key results. And the net promoter score that we've managed to get from the first month of editions is 8.7 out of 10, which is an incredible number for us, and we're very happy with that number. So if I can end off, I think, with a quote from our former president, that seems apt in this moment. It always seems it's impossible until it's done. And that certainly has been our experience with this. So thank you very much for allowing us to share the story.
Thank you, Stanley, for a great presentation. It's very impressive what you've done, and I'm sure we have lots of questions. We will probably not get through them all, so we might just have to send the attendees of this session the answers to the questions. But thanks all the same. Over to you, John.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I've got some questions for you. My name is John Garrett. I'm the owner and founder of Community Impact Newspaper, which is an Austin, Texas-based publication, but we've got publications all over. I'll kind of get into our model. And then plus at the end of this, I hope this is even helpful to you, Steely. I've got some top 5 things that if I were in charge of advertising sales, I would do at your company in 2021. So I'll try to give you something to kind of tangibly to take back. This is Round Rock, Texas in 2005. You see the roads being built. If you imagine 2005 was before Google Maps, I was working at the Austin Business Journal, which is part of the American City Business Journal chain of 30 plus business journals. I grew my career at the Houston Chronicle. I was always on the advertising and business side and circulation side, but I lived up in Round Rock and I drove downtown Austin, and this was my commute every day. And I just wanted to know, like, where were these roads going and how much were they going to cost? And you really couldn't find that information. Most of the community newspapers were about Johnny kicking the winning field goal. And my wife and I didn't care about Johnny. Maybe Johnny's parents cared about Johnny, but we wanted to know when these roads were going to be built. We wanted to know when the new coffee shop near our house was going to be built. So I was at the Business Journal. I was thinking, even though we live in the information age, you still don't know what's happening in your own backyard. In fact, if you were to Google even today what's happening in my own backyard, you would find results on backyard furniture for sale or trampolines for sale. It's even today you still cannot find an easy way to find out what's happening in your own backyard. So we started Community Impact Newspaper, the game room of our house, very similar story, and took a $40,000 line of credit from our credit card and went to work. Our tagline is local, useful, and everyone gets it. And that kind of really explains who we are. And it's always been that way. We local, we truly, we always say we were hyper-local before hyper-local was cool. We write about neighborhood news. I'll talk more about specifically what we write about because the content is useful. Like, we're not writing about school sports. We're writing about things that help people live in their lives and engage in their communities and know where they live. And it's become even more valuable as time has gone on. And everyone gets it. It's a double entendre. We actually mail our newspaper for free to everyone. We started with 60,000 in our first edition to Round Rock and Pflugerville in 2005, and now we're over 2.3 million across the cities of the U.S. so everyone gets it. So when I worked at the Business Journal, it was only the insiders would subscribe to the Business Journal. And in fact, guys, this whole reader revenue model that people are pushing in our industry is only going to exacerbate this problem, because you got to be able to afford a subscription to get content. And I've always had a problem with that. I always believe that if you own a piece of property and the city was working with the developer to sell that piece of property, but you didn't know it, but the insiders knew it, that didn't feel right to me. So we always believe that everybody deserves to know what's happening in their own backyard, regardless of your socioeconomic status. So we actually mail to every residence. It's crazy, but we do it. And also everyone gets it. The other meaning behind that is we're often writing about complex city government issues, and we want everyone to understand it. We want you to understand what an ETJ is and how the city applies those to you. We want you to understand, right now, like what you actually need to go vote, that kind of thing. So we've always had this kind of usefulness, and then our tone has always been very explanatory journalism. Back in 2005, we had one metro, one newspaper, 2 communities we served, and 4 full-time employees. Today, we have 5 metros with 30 plus newspaper editions, 2.3 million in total circulation, and 50 communities, and we have over 190 full-time employees. So at Top Buildings, the building I'm in right now, I'm glad we're open. I'm thankful we're open. And the building below that is our printing facility that we built in 2016. Crazy. Some of your great sponsors helped us do this. In the nod to Nelson Mandela, my quote when we built that printing plant greenfield with Mueller Martini and Goss. I got everybody together and I said, you don't know you're in the middle of a miracle until it's over. And we had to build this plant in 12 months, greenfield. It was incredible. Great partners. Thankful that they're sponsoring this event. They were fantastic, and we got it done. It is actually a profit driver to our company now. I'm very thankful for it. So what do we write about? We write about development. We write about government, transportation, real estate. We write about local events, business profiles, no pay for play, true editorial decisions on our business profiles, but we want local businesses to be highlighted. And man, how awesome is it to do it now? It's been a huge part of our mission during this pandemic. Education, we're writing about the business of schools. Healthcare is a big issue right now. And we also love to give people information about nonprofits in their community. This is kind of how we're structured. Every metro has a publisher. We also have a general manager, which is kind of like the market local leader, the kind of the face of the paper for that market level person. We have editors and reporters depending on the size of the paper that do the work, the editorial work. We also heavily invested in design. I believe that our graphic design of local explanatory journalism is probably the best in the world. It's really fantastic design, and we invest in it. Being a monthly allows you to do that. We take these complex issues, and our designers really do great design work to help tell the story. We also obviously have a sales rep, and then we have sales support inside to kind of help keep things going. Our product menu looks like this. We have a newspaper, we have annual guides that we sell, we have inserts that are targeted, and we also have sticky notes that are targeted at the carrier route level. We're sneaky. Like most people that live in like one of our cities in Houston, they don't even know that we have papers in Austin or in Dallas. They view this as their community newspaper. But we're sneaky good too, that we have invested in it. We built our own ERP. I'll show you some of that in a little bit. That allows us to target really at the carrier route level. We also have obviously our own products on the web, communityimpact.com. Man, I wish we had the same traffic that Steely does. We're at about 2 million uniques a month, but it's a great revenue driver for us. But we don't. We believe it's the cherry on top of the sundae, our digital revenues, and we've done all the analysis, and we're better direct sellers than we would be on any kind of ad network. So we direct sell, and we just use it as an additional driver. We have daily newsletters, about 75,000 a month, and we target at the community geographic level. This is what I was talking about. We've built our own ERP that allows us to target 3 products at the carrier route level. This allows us to compete with Facebook and Google. Listen, I want to say something about newspapers competition with Google and Facebook real fast. Most local businesses, that's where the money is. Like that's why Facebook and Google want newspaper companies to drive subscription and reader revenue, right? Why do they want that? They don't want it for our content. Like that's all a lot. They want it because they want the local business advertising, right? Well, let me tell you a little secret about local business advertising. Most of our business comes from mom and pops, restaurants, retail stores. Sure, we get large regional advertisers that come on board too, but we don't have hardly any national buys, okay? Even though we're pretty big in terms of our circulation. Most of it's done the hard way, going in, pounding the pavement, talking to the business owner. Here's the thing. Business owners, the Facebook and Googles of the world will never be able to beat them in terms of targeting lifestyle stuff. So like, they know if you like Metallica, like they know if you drive a red car, they know all this stuff about you that we can never compete with. But most local businesses actually most care about geography. If you live near my restaurant, you are a likely customer, right? And that is where newspapers can really shine. Geographic targeting in Facebook and any kind of digital platform is very expensive. But for us, it's like our natural sweet spot. So we do a really good job of this. We've really built tools that make it even better. We've really focused more on the targeting of geography and where people are near people's stores. And that's been a huge selling point for us. And it makes sense to the local business owner. So that's a little bit about our product. I told you I wanted to give you 5 things to think about to do. I don't know exactly what your role is in the organizations, but if you're if you're seated at the table and you're talking to publications or you're talking to the sales team, let me just start by saying, I know we're at a print conference, but I get laughed a lot about directly on Twitter. Like people think I am stupid, and I don't really care what people think, but I want to just warn you, like a lot of the things that I say here are definitely not what mainstream journalism experts are saying. But these are based on experience. Like this, I'm not doing this to just be against, the grain. I'm doing it because this is coming from experience, and it's bold. I remember, well, I won't go there, but I've talked at other conferences before, and people have said, "Man, you're just crazy," and that's okay. Maybe I am crazy, but it seems to have worked pretty good for us. We're profitable, we're growing, and people love us. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the number one thing I want to tell you to do is to rethink your distribution circulation strategy. I cannot emphasize this enough in a digital world. Here's the deal. Steely talked about the Texas Tribune. Super successful, well-known, first-class news organization, based in Austin, close to me. I know all those guys. Listen, if you were to go to any of the neighborhoods that we circulate our paper in, and you'd pick 10 houses, and you go to knock on that door, you say, "Hey, do you read Community Impact?" The data will say 7 to 8 of those 10 will say, "Yes, I read it every month." And then you ask those same 10 households, "Do you read Texas Tribune?" Their likely response, and Evan Smith would be really mad at me, but this is the truth. This is outside of the core central district, business district, most people say, "I don't know what the Texas Tribune is." Why is that? They're doing world-class content. They're doing content that's actually making change in the government. They're world-class. It's because of this circulation and distribution. It's the old saying that content is the jewel, but circulation is the crown. You can have the most incredible jewel, the most incredible piece of content, but if nobody sees it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have the impact that you need it to have. So you've got to have the circulation. And listen, everybody in our industry is going the wrong way with this. You saw the numbers earlier on the chart that Steely presented to us. People, they're prioritizing the Mather model, where it's about reader revenue and how much money you can get from your loyal people and just let the rest of them go. You are destroying any hope for your product to have a real place in the marketplace in the next 10 years if you have a strong circulation and distribution strategy. The other thing is, if you're focused on digital distribution, guys, good luck with that. If you don't own your own platform and you're waiting for Apple on the iPhone or Google on the Android device or any Facebook or any social media to do your circulation for you, good luck with that. That is a terrible strategy. So make sure you have strong circulation and make sure you have strong distribution. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is consider a sales culture change. Listen, in our industry, we talk all the time about the editorial newsroom and what we need to do there to keep the newsroom culture there and what we got to do to Yeah. Make sure all that, listen, the one thing that I never hear enough talk about in our industry is how do we get sales culture back into our news organizations? Listen, if you don't care about what's going on the sales culture side, then you have no chance. And the pandemic's only going to make it harder to come back. You've got to really focus on sales culture. What we do at CI is we really focus on activity. So this is part of that information management system that we built in-house. It has everything we do. It's got everything from a CRM to it does billing. It builds a dummy. It does everything all the way to our printer. This thing works all the way out. We had to build it ourselves because a lot of the software platforms that are out there didn't really match our unique product needs. And so, but this is what we do. You can see, like we're measuring cold calls. We have a 3-call close at CI. We have cold calls, discoveries, and decision days, and we're doing conversion rates. So like this sales rep goes on 21 calls, they get to 11 discoveries. That means that 52% of the time when they go and cold call a business owner, 52% of the time that business owner is letting them talk to them about their business and doing kind of an interview. And then from there, 9% or 1 in 10, which is kind of our normal number, are allowing the sales rep to get to a contract to ask for the business. But we're measuring all this. We're measuring contracts. But we're doing it in a fun way, like not a micromanage way. But guys, like, I'm sorry, we got to micromanage a little bit. Like, right? This is sales. Like, you've got to be able to do this. You got to be paying attention to the data, and then you got to celebrate it. So if you have the right salespeople, they're going to love every month. We do a staff meeting. We recognize our top performers, and they love seeing their name at the top. And that's who you want to be. That's who you want to have sell from a sales standpoint. And that's what we've done. We've really built a strong sales culture. But listen, the other thing that we've done is we've said, hey, like, it's not just about the data. It's not just about the sales you're doing. It's who are you building into? So we've created a sales mentorship program where we're saying, listen, you are one of our top performers. We want you to mentor another person we think has a lot of potential. But we want to do it in the way of multiplication, right? You know, multiplication versus addition. What happens? And this should be like really exciting to you, that if you create this program, the way multiplication works is that, you know, in a short time, your entire sales staff are your top performers. And we've seen it play out here. We've gotten our very best performers. We have them mentor those that are that we think have potential. And then we incur after 6 months. And then after that 6 months, we ask those people to then mentor somebody else. And so everyone is mentoring, and it creates a multiplication effect. Guys, what this does for your culture is beyond just making better sales. It's beyond better training. It creates a teamwork. Our mentors are proud of their mentees, and it does something for people when they feel like they're invested in people and they're having success and helping somebody along the way. So create a mentorship program and multiply your top performers. Listen, this is really unpopular, but I've been yelling this for like as long as they've been out there. Stop selling digital services. Stop building ad agencies inside your company. It's the dumbest strategy I've ever heard. And like everyone always says, well, what do you mean? Like we have the relationship with the business owner. Why don't we also sell them Facebook, or why don't we also sell them Twitter? We have the relationship. And I'm like, well, do you sell them toilet paper? Do you sell your restaurant clients the meat, the chicken that they sell? I mean, you have the relationship. Why don't you just sell them, you know, paper towels too? It's because it's not what you do. It's not what you're in your lane for. And digital services, guys, we're outside our lane. I have studied this and I have looked at this. The whole ad agency thing is a total joke. And if you look at what's happening with publicly traded companies like Belo at the Dallas Morning News, for example, they bought an ad agency a few years ago, and everything that I've seen on their reports has shown that it's been a total disaster, right? I have not seen one in-house ad agency really prosper. And I know there's a lot of show out there, but like, I would really like to see the numbers. Like, I'd really like to see how it's impacted their overall bottom line, not just a top line number or not just a segmented agency number, the distraction that it's called. I could be corrected, but I've yet to see one that's really, really worked. And I just want to say that going back to sales culture, if your sales reps are selling Facebook and Twitter or Google or whatever, you start telling your people that those products are better. That's really bad. Your product needs to be the best. You also need to build an internal brand confidence program. I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say this. Like we do like a lot of research. It seems like Steely does as well. Listen, this kind of research, this is readership research that we do. When you have data, and I'm telling you guys, your brands are stronger than you think. When you're getting this data, you come in with this data, your employees feel better about it. It's sure this gives us something to sell, but to outside people, but really it's your internal brand that matters as well. You know, we also really track how well our customers feel about us, and you know, we're really proud of these numbers. That overall, 97% feel good about our overall CI ad experience and how we're doing with design, our ad response, and we're tracking this and we're saying, hey, like, how can we make these better? So sales culture is big to me. I hope you can tell about that, but I will sign off now and let you take back over.
Thank you, John. That was fantastic, and also Styly. You guys are amazing. I have to just say that. We have several questions here, and first I would like to ask both of you, because you're both very reliant on advertising. Of course, advertising has dropped in the past year or so because of COVID. How are you dealing with that? And maybe John, you can start, and then Styly takes over.
Yeah, so yeah, it was really scary. You know, for us, April and May, I mean, we dropped 45%. We're almost 100% ad driven, and you know, but I'm proud of how we bounced back. We're now running about 15% down, which I think from an industry standpoint says a lot. Like we had strong relationships with our advertisers. You know, there's a lot of things that are out of your hands here, out of your control here. But what is in your control is activity and your approach to local business owners, and certainly your product. And so if you have a well-distributed product, you should be able to sell even in this environment. The question is are your sales reps out there doing it? I'm very proud of our sales team here. They, as soon as they were allowed to legally, they got out there. And business owners right now are open to the conversation, certainly in the US. It's just a question of whether or not organizationally you're committed to getting out there and winning again. And I think that in the US in particular, there's a lot of larger companies that just, they're not like Steely and I, we're like entrepreneurs. We're going to go win. And that's the attitude that it takes, I think, to be successful. But if you have a product right now that's distributed, you can sell.
Yeah, Ingi, I would echo exactly what John has said. And John, by the way, I loved your presentation. It's great. I don't think you're mad, for the record. Maybe that makes me mad as well. But Ingi, to answer your question, we were digital only up until a month ago, so I can't really talk to the drop in print advertising. I do know that our industry in April suffered a 70% drop off in print advertising because of the hard lockdown regulations. On the digital side of things, we're actually up on last year. On our digital numbers, but I think that has been because of our emphasis on our newsletters, which we've grown significantly and do well and act in a way almost as the closest thing to a print product as possible as that a digital publisher could have. So we're starting to see a thawing out in the print market. So slowly people coming back. But I think the fact that we managed to break even on our launch edition gives us hope that it's going to come back strongly. And I think, you know, as long as you got, you know, as John says, people hitting the pavement, making those calls, believing in the brand. And I think what we have, and similar to John's environment and John's brands, is we've got the content, the team, the editorial team, that we can go in and have those discussions. And we've separated ourselves from the rest of the pack by the fact that we're producing the best journalism and we're getting the right people to see that work. And I think that's what's making us more sustainable and being able to generate the kinds of revenues that we are.
Thank you, Steely. Maybe a little bit of follow-up for you, because I'm quite interested as a newspaper production person myself, and probably John as well. How was it technologically to move from digital to print? I mean, did you have the systems in place for doing the editorial, I mean, to the page assembly, all that, because that's not something you shake out of your sleeve somehow.
Yeah, so we're quite fortunate that a lot of our editor-in-chief and our founder comes from 20, 30 years of print experience before this. So this was his foray into digital before that. And also about, I'd say about 8 years ago, we actually launched an iPad-only daily magazine, which pretty much, was 100 and odd pages a day for iPad, done in design and other than sending off to printers to print, we pretty much did that entire process already. And so we recruited people with newspaper experience. And I must say that I think, going from, but the most important thing was not, yes, we are going through the processes. Yes, we are having to add new systems and processes to the mix. But the most important thing is that we are editorially relevant on a daily basis, producing a weekly publication rather than being a monthly print publication trying to be relevant on a daily digital basis, which I think is a much harder ask to have of people. So yeah, we're going through that, but it was okay. It wasn't the worst experience that we've ever had.
Okay, great. Now a question for both of you. I'll let John start because you finished now. How do we, as a newspaper industry, attract both young readers and maybe young talent as well?
Yeah, I think it's editorial relevance. So like everyone's always asked that question. Back when I was in the Houston Chronicle in the 90s, we were trying to give free newspapers to kids to see if they would read. Like, listen, in my experience, I live in Austin, Texas. It is a tech-friendly, we got so many tech companies here. Like, it's a very young, progressive, college-educated, great city. If you go talk to people in Northwest Austin, which is kind of a tech hub here, they love community impact. Who does? Usually it's when they are, they maybe buy their own home or they start paying taxes or they have kids. Like, no one who is a college kid is going to read community impact a lot. Like, because we're writing about things that they just don't care about. And so I am less worried about trying to gain 18 to 24-year-olds as I am saying, okay, when they get to the point of being in a community at the when they're starting to pay more taxes, or that's when I start caring about them. And that's just the reality. Like, let Snapchat and all those guys, TikTok, let them have that. You're not going to win it. That's just, the newspapers need to focus on what they're good at. And then the readers who care about that stuff. Young readers just don't care about city government. Like, right? Like, so that's my answer to that. That may not be the most popular answer, but that's my answer.
Sally?
Yeah, John, I find myself nodding and agreeing with you quite a lot on this call. We can see from our digital site that our age brackets are almost uniformly in 10-year brackets, so 25 to 35, 36 to 46. And each of those buckets, they're almost split exactly the same way around, down. And we can see that on our site. And we write about national politics. We write about investigative exposés into national government and local government and all that kind of stuff. And you're only going to start caring about that stuff at a certain age, or there's going to be a handful of politically active and mindful students, for example, especially in our country. And so we just wait for them to get there. But we also, I think also the diversity of our newsroom does help a bit, so a diverse mix of ethnicities and ages, I think also helps. We have a sort of a young maverick newsletter that goes out once a month. And so we're trying these sort of bridging products out there, but it's not the focus. And we kind of will wait for them to kind of get into, to become grumpy with government, and we'll feed them then.
Yeah, just a side note to that, if that's okay. Like, I think part of the question is will young people ever read newspapers, the print product, or they're always going to be on their digital phone? And I do think when they get to 25 years old or so, they're going to be less likely to subscribe to a print product. That's why we're a free model. Whether or not they read it or not, we've already demonstrated that in Austin that 25-year-old plus, they read a paper that's quality, high quality journalism that's relevant, that's sent to them. Now, whether or not they would pay for that or not, Listen, when we started in 2005, the reason I didn't go paid is because I learned at the Business Journal that we would charge $75 for an annual paid subscription, and it cost us $180 to acquire that paid subscriber. So like, it's always been difficult to get paid subscribers. So I think free distribution will solve that problem.
So I feel that you're both saying that newspapers should be focusing on their local markets. Stali, would you agree with that? Because I know John has.
I would say that the greatest opportunity for success is the local market. It's where you can differentiate. It's where there are fewer competitors. It's very few other people are producing that kind of journalism. And if you can do it to the level and the quality that John and his crew is doing, then you absolutely have the greatest chance of success. We're obviously a national publication at this point in time. But our expansion efforts will be to build off that into more local content off the back of that.
Great. Anything you want to add? We have 1 minute left, so you have 30 seconds each to finish off.
I would just say a thing I like to say a lot is print ain't dead. That's right from Texas, and that's how I'll close. Wish all y'all health and safety.
Okay. Stali?
Yeah, I think, John mentioned it earlier, we've got to be entrepreneurial in how we attack these problems. We've got to be nimble. We've got to be thinking about testing and iterating. We've got to be thinking about experimenting within a framework so that we can learn from our experiments, and they're not just wasteful efforts. But certainly the medium is not dead, and it's not the medium to blame. It's the practitioners and the practices that are to blame for the decline, I think, partly.
Excellent. I want to thank both of you for excellent presentations and really motivating speeches. I was very excited to hear what you had to say, and I hope our audience was as well. I thank you so much, and I'm joined here by Maria Belem, who's our sales director. Are you muted still, Maria, or what?
No, I'm not, but suddenly it became very dark. So this is Germany, winter time. So I'm not sure if you see me well, but thank you so much to our speakers. I think it was a very interesting session. There were a lot of questions here. If you're not able to have your question answered, make sure to reach out to both of our speakers. You can find their contact details in the meeting hub, and I'm very sure they will be happy to answer you. Just wrapping up 3 days of events, I would like to once again, it's never enough, to thank our loving sponsors. Thank you so much for your support. I do hope to see you physically next year for WPS 2021. Here at WAN-IFRA, we have our fingers crossed that the situation will get better and we'll all be able to see each other physically. Next week, you will all receive a wrap-up email as well with the links for the YouTube session. So if you missed some session, don't worry. We will make sure that the links reach you. Just bear with us. We had almost 400 participants from 42 countries. So this is a wrap from our side. I hope you stay well, you stay healthy and safe. And I will hand over now to you, Ingi.
Thank you, Maria. I also want to thank you. We have covered quite a lot of stuff over the past 3 days, and we're treading new territories here, similar to our speakers. So it's very interesting. I want to thank our speakers and the moderators and the sponsors as well. And last but not least, I want to thank my team. My team within WAN-IFRA, which is Christine, Charmaine, Maria, Biljessa, Sumitra, and Thomas, and of course the rest of the WAN-IFRA team that has worked countless hours to make this happen.